I've long said to my teams, don't put people to work. The concept behind this assertion is that we all have our jobs to do. There's usually plenty of responsibility already assigned to us in our various roles, and the distractions come fast and readily with a barrage of stimuli from technology. There's no need to pile on to somebody's plate with things you could just do yourself, especially when the result is the same or more efficient. This was born of working in a corporate environment, a place that lends itself to individuals being highly protective of their jobs. They are often silo-minded and covetous of information they have that others, quote, don't need. I have encountered hundreds of people who are ironically called partners that would make it their mission to rebound tasks back to the requester as often as they could get away with, which, in a giant company, is almost every time. You need them to accomplish something? This T was not crossed, so fill out the form again, meaning start over. The amount of work that was compounded by people with terrible ideas of how teams should operate was immeasurable. Eventually, because I'm a fan of efficiency, I just coached my teams to do as much for themselves as they possibly could with whatever access they had. I further encouraged them to develop relationships with certain individuals in the various departments we might need something from so that we could circumvent the process, which had the tendency to be bogged down by obstinate mules, in order to actually get the job done in a reasonable amount of time. It's a sad state of affairs when your job becomes more efficient by avoiding the established process. In fact, it's contraindicated. If you'd like to get resources on implementing this tactic, hear how this can be effective in your life, and get the principle used to sum it up, stay tuned to the end. I'm not advocating this kind of subterfuge as a matter of course because there may be plenty of companies that don't create the need for it, and I certainly would be crushed to find out it was necessary in my own business. However, oftentimes when a corporation gets big enough, especially too big to fail, these long-held organizational habits get developed over thousands of interactions between employees who create their own methods to get the job done despite long-created obstacles. Organizational habits, when crafted purposefully and with production in mind, can be extremely powerful methods of developing a strong business model. However, when left up to chance and partners who are actually just being selfish about how much work they don't want to do, they often work in the very opposite direction. For details on this, because I'm practically quoting the work, I highly recommend reading The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And while you're at it, read Smarter, Faster, Better by him as well, because he writes life-changing books that are great reads packed with incredibly useful information. Because we were then doing more work than other teams while still outperforming them in our standard job, it became very important that we did not needlessly pile tasks on each other. This actually served to make a strong team even stronger because they operated with each other in mind, completed tasks for each other, and took pride in being able to accomplish so much more than other teams. The skill level would get so high that despite a larger workload, we would far outperform other teams and have time to spare, often seeming like we had much less to do than other teams and having a much more relaxed work environment. We learned to work smarter, and the results included much better customer experiences. We were a dynamic and agile team that far exceeded the company's objectives for our roles. Avoiding putting each other to work became the call to action for a supportive work environment that led to accomplishing more than others in less time than it took them to do the same. The benefits to this were incalculable. Eventually, I took this outside of work and found that it lent itself to a much broader spectrum of living. It became sort of a karmic philosophy because when you're not applying it to business, you can't always tell how it will benefit you. I make my area tidy when I'm done eating out at restaurants, making it easy for whoever's bussing to simply grab everything with one hand. I leave my hotel rooms neat without any extraneous mess for the janitorial staff to clean. I am ready with payment method in hand when I get to the front of the line to purchase things. I have information ready when I call customer service, and I am polite when making any request from a service provider. I try to be the best kind of customer because that's who I want to deal with, knowing full well there are people out there having bad days, accidents, and rough childhoods who have no interest in making others' lives easier when theirs is so hard. I could never claim that I'm perfect in this endeavor, but more often than not, I can tell you I've made at least one transaction seamless for somebody who is just trying to do their job. If you're creative, you can apply this everywhere. You can get out of the way when there is space and you're moving slower than the person behind you wants to go, whether in a car or on foot. You can make sure your trash makes it into a proper receptacle. You can keep your conversation to a volume where only those closest to you can hear. You can avoid telling somebody a secret that puts them in a position to lie. Everywhere someone is trying to get something done, and if all those people did their best to allow others to do the same, the world would be a much more streamlined and happy place. It would allow for more folks to go above and beyond rather than just doing their job, because they'd have the extra space in their brain, emotional reserves, or reduced workload to take a little better care of you than the strictest minimum required. Personally, I like feeling as though somebody's trying to take extra care of me. It makes me feel valued and want to be a very loyal customer. Perhaps I've felt a need for an updated golden rule, though nothing beats the original from an efficiency and thoroughness view. So, "don't put others to work" became our shorthand in a world where technology develops faster than our ability to understand it. But there's one last layer to it that I've discovered, the one that helped me lock it into place and really spread the joy. Don't put yourself to work. Now, there's nuance to this, so stay with me. I am absolutely not advocating laziness. Put into the context I've already created, one could imagine a word added to that sentence that captures the point. Don't put yourself to work needlessly. There are things that deserve your attention, work that needs to get done, people that need to be taken care of, and responsibilities that need to be upheld and accounted for. So why bother yourself by worrying about small things, especially those that are out of your control? Why announce you'll do everything yourself if you actually resent it? Why go out of your way to make another human miserable? It is incredibly beneficial to stop and ask yourself, as often as you dare, whether the action you're about to take is productive. Think of calling up a company and yelling at some poor customer service rep who, strictly by chance, is catching your beatdown. You justify the beatdown because you've been slighted by the company they work for. It's worth it to ask yourself what you will truly gain from this. Having spent most of a career in customer service, I can assure you that you were likely to get whatever you needed, whether you were throwing a tantrum or not. People who take calls are not interested in verbal beatings any more than you are. So take stock of what you truly gained by working yourself into a frenzy. The same outcome, a difficult and uncomfortable exchange, maybe an ulcer. Throwing away my trash does not put me out. Doing everything in my power to ensure somebody knows I'm angry does. Think of the calorie burn alone. I advocate for taking stock of one's plans and actions, choosing carefully as often as possible the path that seems likeliest to be the most productive, and sleeping like a baby, knowing my best was attempted to be a good human that day. The principle. Be mindful of how your actions have multiplying effects on others that have a tendency to come full circle upon you. Don't borrow trouble or extra work for yourself that you'll just end up resenting anyway. I mentioned in this video about whether something is productive. If you'd like to hear more about that, how you make connections in your brain and how to take control of them, watch this video on neuroassociations. Thanks for watching the video, and be sure to subscribe for more like it. Click on the notification bell to be alerted to new videos.